report. It's usually given in December, and it's designed to be a description of basically the fiscal house through the last fiscal year, the different things that went on. But I think just the nature of the annual report is such that people want to see what have you been doing over the last year and what does the year ahead look like. And so we kind of developed it along those lines, but we still include the fiscal report as well. And unfortunately, we don't have very many of them right now that have been printed, but we're going to be putting them more together. But we'll leave these here. You can look through them, and then once we get more copies, we'll be glad to share them with you. When I came to report this year, I told folks that 2013 was the year things really started to come together. You know, the recession knocked us for a loop. Wicomico County was hit harder than most every other county on the Eastern Shore and in Maryland, and it's taking us longer to recover. And I don't know if that's directly attributable to the aggressiveness of our housing boom, the construction during the boom years of the late 90s and mid 2000s, but once the housing boom hit, or the housing collapse came upon us, it really hit Wicomico hard. But it gave us the opportunity, because you take the opportunity when you are challenged like that to really step back a little bit, and the lull in the activity gave us an opportunity to step back and just see what we were about, what are our obligations, what can we do, what should we be doing. And so it gave us a period for some self-assessment, nowhere more directly than in our departments. That's that's the foundation of our services. It's funded by your tax dollars, our tax dollars. And so we were required just to balance the budget to go right down to our roots. Every department head was challenged to go right to their very core of existence. What are their statutory requirements? Why are they there? What is it that they have to do by law? Let's establish that base and then do the best of our capabilities, build from that. And so it wasn't a total classic zero-based budget, but it was as close to it as you can get. And what we found, of course, when we had to balance the budget with much diminished revenues, we had to downsize. And I made a couple of comments to the county council prior to the recession, when we would argue a little bit over budgets, that I wasn't elected to dismantle the county government, but it seemed that a lot of times during the recession, that's exactly what we were forced to do, because we had to do things. All of our employees took furloughs. We went 3 years with furloughs when we couldn't even pay our people what we hired them for. We lost a number of jobs. We eliminated nearly 100 jobs. Close to half of those actually had people in them. The others were just unfunded through the budget. But close to 50 people actually lost their jobs. Nowhere was it worse than in the roads department. You've heard, maybe seen in the paper, the discussion about highway user revenues. These are funds that would come back to local government from the gas taxes that we pay, from the motor vehicle registration fees that we pay. And traditionally, municipalities and counties would take those highway user revenues and fund their public works department, especially the roads departments. In our case, we went from $7 million down to $200,000. Well, our budget, our general fund, wasn't equipped to make up that kind of a gap. And so just to have the bare bones roads program, to pave the potholes and keep the shoulders safe, and to have some level of roads program, we had to take money out of other things. We had to take money out of education, we took money out of recreation and parks, we took money out of public safety to a degree, just to have a bare bones roads program. So things were pretty bleak. But so we understood that there was what I call a new normal, that we were not going to come out of this recession anywhere like what we were before we went in. And so we did this self-assessment to see just what kind of community we were capable of being. What did we want? What did the community want? And then what were we willing to pay? What could we afford going forward? So we commissioned the SAGE report. Anwar Basu, many of you have heard speak, the SAGE policy group came in, and we organized several community panels that sat down with the SAGE folks and just talked about what kind of place are we? You know, we grow up with the hub of Delmarva. You know, we were always seen as the leadership in schools and quality of life and employment and this sort of things. And SAGE went back and put together a report based on the interplay that they had with the county citizens. And basically the ultimate result of the SAGE process was something that we knew we felt we knew, we believed going into it. One was that we can't tax our way into prosperity. We found that compared to other jurisdictions, Wicomico County is already bearing a very heavy tax burden in the state of Maryland. And we couldn't slash our services to the point where we could still be a viable community. And so it seemed that it was almost just obvious that the answer was in economic development. And the SAGE policy exercise came out with a very strong endorsement of more aggressive, more involved economic development activity. So that's something that we embraced. Trying to build that bridge to business, to foster a better business climate so that people could do better, hire people, maintain what they had here. We undertook 3 initiatives with the county council. One was a direct result of me being president of MACo, and I'll touch a little bit on it later, but we proposed through the General Assembly a law that decoupled the property tax and the personal property tax, the real estate tax. Up until this year, the law required that whenever a municipality or county set their property tax rate, the personal property tax rate paid by business was an automatic 2.5 times that. We felt that if we could decouple those 2 tax rates and give the local government the flexibility to treat the business tax on its own merits and not have it directly tied to the real estate tax, then that would be a positive thing. That it wouldn't, that maybe if the community felt they could go 2 or 3 cents higher on a property tax rate if the money was going to go to schools or a particular public safety effort, then we wouldn't have that automatic increase to the business community as well. Well, we were successful in getting that through the General Assembly, and the budget that was adopted for this year, this current year, has a business tax, a personal property tax rate of 13 cents below what it would have been had we not undertaken that effort. So I think that was a good exercise, time well spent. We also agreed with the county council that we would phase out our inventory tax, something that's particularly onerous to a lot of businesses with high inventory. It'll take 5 years, but at the end of that 5-year period, Wicomico County will no longer have an inventory tax. We had a manufacturer's tax exemption that was pretty well granted to anyone who applied for it, but you would have to apply, and there would be a certain amount of red tape and paperwork involved in seeking that exemption. Again, working with the county council, we were able to make that tax exemption automatic. So that makes, again, a little smoother process and another incentive for business to have, first of all, the direct impact of that tax relief, but also I think it sent a pretty strong message that we in county government were committed to building our business community and trying to provide those better opportunities for business to succeed. In addition to the SAGE study and the resulting efforts toward economic development, we commissioned Beacon at Salisbury U to do a 10-year analysis of the revenue cap, not with any preconceived notion about trying to get rid of it or one thing or another, but it's been 10 years since the cap was adopted, and we wanted an independent assessment of just what has it meant to Wicomico County that we have this particular revenue cap. The study is complete. I think it's just going through a little bit of polishing. We're going to take it first to my Council of Economic Advisors, and MACo will go through it with us, and then we will release that to the public. I can tell you we did not expect for it to advocate the repeal of the cap, and it will not. But what it will address will be some structural issues with how the cap is formulated that we may be able to tinker with to make it more of a practical tool for managing our fiscal house rather than trying to do away with it altogether. We also, since so much of our budget is directed to public education, we commissioned an E&E study, again through SAGE and Beacon, to go through the Board of Education accounts to see where we might be able to save some money there, to see if we're spending our money as wisely as we can. That study is progressing. We hope that it won't be too much longer in coming out, especially so that we'll have it in time for this coming year's budget exercise. So we've been doing all of those to kind of take advantage of the lull in the activity in the economy to do this self-assessment, to try to build on a base of economic development so that we can be situated well once the cycle of the recession breaks. Again, we're not talking recovery in Wicomico County, but we do believe the worst is over. We're seeing strong signs now of increased activity. I wish our employment numbers were better. I wish the employment rate was better. But I think that things are pointing in the right direction. One of the things that we've been dealing with, especially this year, through gasification. The state is pursuing an agenda of zero waste. We've already got some pretty formidable recycling goals, or actually recycling mandates in front of us that are going to be a struggle to make. We're looking at alternative ways of handling our waste, and we think we've got some potential for some really strong environmentally friendly ways that works out. As you saw in the paper today, it may actually eliminate the need for a landfill. It would eliminate the need for recycling with all of the various containers, because the processes we've looked at takes all of the solid waste, combines it, heats it up, melts it down. You can tell the remaining metal that comes out of it. Several of us visited a plant in New Jersey a few weeks ago where this is done. It's a great exercise. There are questions about the environmental impact of any resulting activity. Also the cost, just to make sure that we can afford it, but it's something that we're looking at. We're also looking into solar panels around the county to have as an alternative form of less expensive energy. But one of the things that we've done with the environmental challenges, it seemed to us that the state has been relentless in the last few years with mandates that we feel have not been fully thought out, that possibly the science isn't as strong as it needs to be, leading to the regulations that have been imposed on us. There's been the septic legislation that came through the state that now is reflected in our tier map exercise, where we're going to have to divide the county into 4 tiers as to what level of development can occur in each of those tiers. It's a very emotional issue. Anytime you talk about property that people own and pay taxes on, there's going to be some concerns. Most of us believe that we're not here in government to take any action that's going to devalue or diminish someone's confidence in their property values, and so we're trying to strike that balance there. We've got the watershed improvement plans that have been mandated. They call it the WIP, where we're going to have to deal with point sources of pollution in our waterways. Preliminary estimates for the standards that have been imposed, just in Wicomico County alone, indicate it could carry a price tag of about $800 million. Well, when someone comes in from Annapolis or Washington and says Wicomico County is going to have to come up with $800 million to do any kind of a program, whether it's environmental or any other kind, well, it's, I told you might as well tell us to build a rocket to Mars. They just lose their credibility because we don't have that kind of money in Wicomico County. None of the jurisdictions of the state have the kind of money that is attached to the price tag of these WIP programs. And so unfortunately, the official response was, well, we know that, but just do the best you can. Just try to develop a program and do the best you can, and we'll support you. Well, I don't know about you, but if I'm going to commit county dollars down a particular path, I want to know pretty much where we're going and how it's going to be spent, what we're going to get out of it. And it doesn't help us when some of the bureaucrats that we talk to say, well, we don't really know what's going on, we're kind of making this up as we go along. So we felt that we needed to really slow down things a little bit and start requiring a place at the table for those of us that are being impacted by all of these issues. And so we've been talking with the Clean Chesapeake Coalition. Clean Chesapeake Coalition is a group, it's a group of counties that have organized and hired the law firm of Funk and Bolton to represent them in dealing with the state and the federal government about this barrage of regulations that are coming down that are going to potentially have strong impacts on our community. Funk and Bolton has tremendous credibility with the county. They handle our bond rating exercises. They are our bond counsel. Chip McLeod, the lead attorney for Funk and Bolton, his father served on the county council in the last term and is well respected in the community. So it's a group that I feel comfortable with. When they first organized about a year ago, it seemed that the emphasis was going to be on lawsuits. They were going to, the tag that was applied to them was that they were going to sue the state. They were going to make all this noise that we don't tread on us, we weren't going to go this way. And I frankly did not want to be a part of that. There's a lot more we can be doing with our money than trying to sue the state of Maryland. Over the year, it seems to me that the discussion has evolved to now it's a more collaborative approach where we're simply trying to use the Clean Chesapeake organization as leverage to get the right parties to the table so that we can sit down with the people in the state and with the feds and talk about just what it is we're trying to accomplish, what is our piece of it, how much can we afford, and if we put all this effort into doing our piece of the puzzle, are you also going to be getting similar results up and down the Bay watershed? And that brings in the issue of the Wicomico Dam and the relicensing that is currently underway. So we're very much in tune with that process. Again, not to avoid any kind of responsibility for cleaning up our environment, because I don't think any of us would be Eastern Shore residents if it wasn't for the fact, if we didn't have a strong love and attachment for the green around us. And so, but we who have to make decisions on how we're handling your tax dollars have to make sure that we're making wise use of those dollars. And so we are trying to take advantage of every opportunity to require when we have to. And so many times lately, it seems like we do have to require the ones above us to come down and speak with us and work with us. We had a kind of a neat exercise that we started in Wicomico County in dealing with the tier map issue. You know, one of the frustrating things in our line is that we would sit down with one group of folks and hear an argument about why this, and this should happen, and how it's just the greatest thing to deal with the whole issue of planning and zoning and property management. And then you would go back to another group and they would completely obliterate that argument and tell you all the reasons why that wouldn't work and this would be better. And trying to balance those, I used to have a great, it just gave me more respect for my father, who served as a judge and would have to listen to two fighting sides and try to find somewhere in the middle to come down that was fair and just. And so we came up with the idea of what we call a collaborative dialogue. We engaged the Bosman Center for Conflict Resolution here at Salisbury University to set up a roundtable. There was a community roundtable of people in all of the pertinent fields of environmental planning, agriculture, all of the issues that, or all of the parties that have anything to do with building the quality of life we enjoy in the county, and bring them to the table for collaborative dialogue. One person kind of poo-pooed the idea and says, you don't need conflict resolution. Why is this a conflict resolution matter? Well, so we don't talk about conflict resolution, we call it collaborative dialogue. And it worked very well. And what it did, it took the discussion a few notches above the average public hearing. And I don't mean to diminish the importance of public hearings. They're a tremendously necessary tool for those of us that are in government as we try to develop our plans going forward. But it's one thing to have a group of people holding signs saying raise chickens, not taxes, and another group who can sit down and talk to you about water quality, about property values, about the impacts of this action on property assessments, and the issue of appraisals, the connection of property appraisals, and the ability of farmers to borrow money to buy a combine based on the trust and confidence that the lenders have in their property. And so that was the effort of our collaborative dialogue and our roundtables, to bring those people to the table. And we actually had a very, very positive, strong exercise. The most poignant point, I think, we had 2 nights at the Civic Center, and picture this, 2 nights of 4-hour meetings, 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock at night, 2 nights in a row at the Civic Center. No one would ever volunteer for something like that unless they really believed. And yet we had 2 nights of thoroughly engaged, warm, involved, enthusiastic conversation. I don't think we lost anybody over those 2 nights. But the most poignant moment was when one member of the environmental community turned to one of the farmers at the table. And you could just see the sincerity in the way she approached him. She wanted to know what it was he wanted. What was it that motivated him or that caused him to be concerned about a strong environmental program. And she really wanted to understand. You can see it. You can see it in the way she expressed herself in her face. And the farmer, and this is a guy that I grew up with. I've known him since we were born. I remember when he was 4 years old driving his tractor past my house. I wanted to get out and drive too. But you know, now he's this crusty old guy who's had to deal with government bureaucracy, and we're both crusty old guys. But he's had a lifetime of dealing with bureaucracy, dealing with weather, dealing with all of the challenges that come with being a farmer, dealing with neighbors, that sort of thing. And yet, this tough old guy, just see him kind of thaw out as he opened up to the lady from the environmental community and just explained to her, he loves the environment. He makes his living based on the quality of our environment. He's got a family to support. He has to make a it's college education for his kids. It was just to have a decent retirement. He wants to know that if he's got 100 acres somewhere in the county, that there's value to that land that he may be able to pull on as circumstances develop. And so it was, he needed this comfort level. He needed this sense of options with his property. And so you could just see around the room people's minds coming together. And I think when we left that exercise, we came out with a spirit that we're turning over to the county council now as they take their tier map discussion to the final level, we hope, which will be a submission of plans to the state as we're required to do. That's a far cry from one of the other parties who simply said, we'll just write it the way we want and send it up to the state and say the heck with it. You know, that's not going to get us anywhere, but I think what we've been doing is the right thing. So it's all about this. When I talk about the state of the county and talk about things coming together in 2013, what I mean is that we are actually bringing the community to the table. We're looking at what kind of county we want to be going forward. We're trying to get as many of our shareholders, so stakeholders, involved in the process as we can, so that when the economy does start to turn around and things improve, first of all, we will have prepared a solid foundation for it here in Wicomico County with our business incentives, our opportunities, and then we hopefully will have a better engaged community who will understand that if we're going to have any kind of quality of life, if we're going to have good governmental services that are going to attract people to come to Wicomico County and live and do business and have their businesses, then we're going to have to invest in education. We're going to have a safe community. We're going to have to invest in our infrastructure. And so that's when we come to our tax dollars and how are we applying our tax dollars. And it's always been my feeling that the more engaged people are and the more involved they are in how we make those decisions, then the stronger our community will be and the better we can represent ourselves to prospective families, to prospective businesses, and so forth. And so we've been very pleased with how 13 has kind of showed it all coming together. We look forward to 2014 having these things in place. Hopefully within the next few weeks we'll be releasing the revenue cap study, we'll be releasing the E&E study on the Board of Education. We still haven't really had a big community presentation for the SAGE report, the initial report that led us to the conclusions about economic development. We'd like to have further engagement on that. And so those are the kinds of things that we're involved with as far as the state of the county goes and looking forward. As far as MACo goes, actually a lot of what I've been able to do with MACo as president this year has been a continuation of that whole community engagement type of thing. Let me just quickly, as a footnote to the tax study or the tax conversation about decoupling the two property taxes. MACo is for those of you who don't know, is the official lobbying organization, I guess you could call it, for county government in Annapolis. Every county is represented. We have a legislative committee that starts the year with the charge of developing a legislative proposal for the following year. We'll send out feelers to our members for the issues that are of interest to people. And many times we'll start off with 60 or 70 issues that people are concerned about. Well, our legislative committee will go through those, work together with their colleagues, and try to whittle those down by the end of the year to a top 3 or 4. A lot of times we can combine issues, some issues we feel that we can handle outside of being a priority, but being president of MACo, I was able to propose this issue of decoupling the tax rates, because we could only do it through state legislation. Well, to be honest with you, the staff there really wasn't enthused about the idea. I don't know if they thought it just wasn't appealing enough to make it a statewide issue, or if there was that much interest, but I was able to persuade them as president to keep that as one of our top 4 agenda items. So that did go through, and as you say, the benefit of Wicomico County. has been real. And I think there might have been one or two other counties this year that took advantage of that. Beyond that, we've been trying to strengthen county government's role in Annapolis with outreach. We've been able to persuade Governor O'Malley to reconstitute the Intergovernmental Council, which is a group representing MACo and the Municipal League, MML, and the Governor's Office. This was something that was active during the days of Governor Glendenning. They had since fallen by the wayside. Again, understanding that with this new normal, we're in a different world than we were 10 years ago, 20 years ago. We're going to have new approaches to solving our problems. We believe, and this was another offshoot of the state study, that we have to start looking at combining resources, about sharing resources that we have in common with our associates. Did Jake leave?
Yeah, I think you got a phone call.
One of the things that we are doing that I couldn't be happier about is we've got a new level of activity going on, communication, collaboration with the city of Salisbury. We don't talk about consolidation. There have been enough studies in the past that have recommended we do away with this or that and the other. What we're finding, what we've always known, but what is more important now is that people don't care if you represent city government, county government, state government, or whatever. If you're elected to manage their tax dollars, they just want to make sure that they're getting the best bang for their buck. And when you have multiple agencies handling those tax dollars and sometimes trying to do the same thing in respect to services, we're not getting the best value. And so it's more incumbent upon us than ever to build those relationships so that, and not just in Wicomico County, but even from a regional standpoint, we have to expand our boundaries so that we can be more inclusive, look at things from a regional approach, see how can we work with Dorchester County, Worcester County, Somerset County, Sussex, or even Accomack to take advantage of the things that we have that are unique about the lower shore and put them to work for us on a regional aspect. We've had a great success with Worcester County and Ocean City directly in our tourism efforts. We have all kinds of athletic facilities available to us in Wicomico County that makes us attractive as a place for even coastal competitions, athletic competitions. We're bringing them in, whether it's softball, wrestling, basketball, whatever. We're packing the Civic Center, we're packing our county facilities with activities that bring money in and gives the children a lot of opportunities for growth. But we don't have the motel space to accommodate everyone. And so we have a memorandum of understanding now with Worcester County where we share resources. When we have an event, we don't have enough space for everybody, then we refer them to Worcester County. They get the same kind of benefits that we would have as an attraction to coming to Wicomico. And on the other side of that, when they have events where they need facilities and don't have them, then they'll be able to come to Wicomico County, take advantage of our athletic fields and so forth. And so it's a partnership that we want to see developed and expanded in all kinds of other ways as well. Back to MACo, we continue to outreach with the Municipal League, again with this concept that people don't care if you work for the city or the county, they just want good services. So MACo and MML, who often have been in competition with each other for limited dollars, are now actually trying to build a stronger partnership so that when people do have issues that our energies are more combined now rather than butting against each other. We've also reached out to the State Board of Education, or the State Teachers Association. As I said before, the bulk of our tax dollars go into education, and I don't think anyone disagrees with that. But again, we want to make sure that we have the relationships where there is respect for the investment that we're making as taxpayers in education. And so our teachers, they're on the front lines. They're the ones that are responsible for the product that give our children the opportunities to come out upon graduation. And so it's so important that there is a respect for our budget process, for our capabilities, for the I don't want to call it a burden, but it's the obligation that we face as taxpayers to fund education. It's so much more important and it's so much more beneficial if we have the leadership of the Education Association at the table while we're making these budget decisions and having these budget conversations if they understand where we're coming from, what our capabilities are, what our limitations are. And then we, of course, benefit from them so that we have a better understanding of what the classroom challenges are. What is it that they need to feel that they're accomplishing positive things. And so again, it's been about collaboration, engagement, getting people together again, and that if there was any kind of record or mark of notes from other counties now where they've tried this issue of collaborative dialogue or bringing more people to the table, where before things were just kind of taken for granted, and it's working out. So when I say it's my job to come in and give you good news, you know, that's first thing someone told me when I was elected to this job, as the county executive from Baltimore County. He said, don't give bad news. Let other people give the bad news. You only give good news. Well, we haven't always had that luxury in the last few years. But today I can come and tell you that I really believe that we've made good use of this downtime during the recession to get our house in order. It was never reflected more strongly than this year when we went to New York to talk to the bond rating agencies, as we do almost every year. We missed one year during the recession. But when we go to New York to talk about how we're going to be spending money next year on capital projects, and of course, you know, we have the Bennett Middle School underway. We've got other issues with the Board of Education for capital projects on the table. We talked to the three agencies in New York about basically what I've been telling you today about our efforts toward economic development, our efforts at getting our fiscal house in order. And our fiscal house is strong. We've got very strong reserves, contrary to a lot of things you'll hear this year being an election year. We don't spend every penny we get. We spend what we need and we put the rest away, and so we've got some healthy reserves. Anyway, the ultimate result of that was that 2 of the 3 rating agencies boosted our credit rating this year, and that's something that hasn't happened before. We had one general upgrade early in the term, but to have a local government's credit bond rating upgraded, especially in a recession with all the challenges in front of us, by 2 of the 3 agencies, I think was a tremendous vote of confidence in how we're handling our fiscal house and dealing with the public's funds, tax dollars. And so we feel that we're on the right track. We think that our initiatives toward our new environmental direction for zero waste or getting to zero waste, the foundation we've laid for business through our initiatives with the county council, and I do appreciate the county council for their support in that, their enthusiastic support, because it's been a team, and we're constantly reaffirming that issue that when you put politics aside and you really start talking about community and putting your energies together in a positive way, you really can accomplish things, even in this mess that we've been through for the last few years. Things are strong, things are going to get stronger, things are looking much better. And so I would say that the state of our county is very good. We're in great shape for the shape we're in. And I think I'm very, very pleased with the direction that we're going.
Thank you so much, Rick. I really appreciate you coming and sharing good news with us, and I'm sure we'll miss you as being MACo president this year. But you did great work while you were in that role. I wanted to open it up for discussion if anybody had any questions for Rick before we end at 9 o'clock. Does anybody have any questions?
From an agriculture standpoint, we appreciate the county involving agriculture and chicken manure in the discussion. A decade ago, I would never have thought that I would spend as much time thinking about manure as I do. But that is the real world we live in. I think that's the most important issue that economically in agriculture the county has, particularly the county, in light of all the other issues. So we want to help as much as possible, as you well know, and I think that's moving along very aggressively, you know, and wish you success in it.
Well, I appreciate that. I want to thank you too, James, and especially you personally, but through the Chamber's Agribusiness Committee, because we have worked very strongly together the last few years to try to develop an agenda. And you're right, Wicomico County is still Maryland's #1 county for agriculture. and we want to keep it that way. We want to keep our poultry industry strong. We want to have our farmers content or and confident that the government supports them and will be there for them when they need them.